Hey guys, you hear me? Yeah, just doing doing some checks here. Transmission, checking something. Okay, we're good to go. Well, we are live. Welcome again to this Sunday live stream of Venezuela Insider. Today is February 15 of 2025. And happy Valentine's Day for the ones that, well, everyone. Everyone is entitled. And yeah, we have some discussions for the day. Mostly the biggest of this week was the visit of the U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, and basically he spent basically the whole week in order to check how things are going on the oil industry in Venezuela. Yeah, he checked by himself, boots on the ground, that there is a lot of work to do. And yeah, sorry about that. We are, like I said, on a warp speed regarding changes in the country. Everything is fast paced, and we are going to cover basically the changes of this week, some of them at very least. But before we get into business, there are a couple of things that I need to address, that I need to get out of my chest. And something that I discuss a lot. Yeah, let me just like this. Something that I discuss a lot on past years, and it was, not as important after all of, the mayhem that we got on the past year and a half. But something that's very important is for internationals dealing with Venezuela. And I said this many times, that Venezuela is a unique country. And when an international wants to do something regarding investing, traveling, whatever, or doing geopolitical analysis or economic analysis, and most of the time they get it wrong. And I discuss the reasons why. It's so many reasons. Political bias, recency bias. Also, that people try to use a proxy for Venezuela, other countries in Latin America, and even very stupid examples as comparing Venezuela with the Middle East or something, and you're gonna get it wrong. Every time you're gonna get it wrong. And something that happens with Venezuela is that miscues are expensive. Venezuela is expensive, by the way. And that's the reason why a quarter, almost a third of the population left. Because it's expensive, it's very hard to make ends meet in the country. And when an international comes, first they think, oh, it's a shitty third world country, whatever, it's gonna be cheap, I'm gonna spend in dollars, and I'm gonna arrive, I'm gonna be the king, the baller. And that doesn't happen. First, Venezuela is de facto dollarized. And so your dollar is not gonna make, because you own dollars or you earn on USD, that won't make that much of a difference. Because and things are gonna be expensive, and sometimes more expensive than in your home country. And many people get outraged or whatever, and they don't expect that. But it is what it is. There are many reasons for that. Actually, I remember I made a series of videos a couple of years ago, the things that are going to be cheaper in Venezuela in the future, that the future is today, because those videos were from a couple of years ago. And there will be things that are going to be more expensive in Venezuela in the future, aka on the next few months, waiting for a particular change. Anyways, other thing that many internationals do regarding Venezuela, they try to cut corners First, using strategies, the same strategies that they use in their home country or on a third country that are unfit to be applied in Venezuela. You cannot, there are no cookie cutter strategies in Venezuela. The situation is very fluent, the situation changes a lot, the status quo mutates constantly, and right now is mutating this time for the better, for the most part, is mutating basically every day. Honestly, every single day is mutating. So if you are using cookie cutter strategies, you're gonna fail, you're gonna spend a lot of money and a lot of time doing that. And the last, something I also talked this a lot in the past, is that experience has no substitute in Venezuela. It's very, very hard to be ahead of the curve, at least playing part of the course here in Venezuela. It's like, it's playing like the US Open in golf. I mean, if you're a golf nerd or something, I'm terrible playing golf, but I just reminded that. And this is something that you won't be special, you won't be different trying to avoid this. So if you come with cookie cutter strategies from your own country without considering the Venezuelan nuances, that there are a lot, and they mutate constantly, Venezuela is like the... have you seen this movie Maze Runner? That is a science fiction movie about some kids that they are stranded in some random place, and there is a huge maze surrounding them, and in order to escape from the place that they are, stranded, they need to go to this huge maze that changes every night when the kids go to sleep. The maze transforms itself and they have some creatures and things like that. And you have to be a maze runner in order to deal with Venezuela. And many people are very, very naive or very arrogant, or they have this hubris of trying to deal with Venezuela, coming as like they own the place or whatever. And that's the people that do the performance is the worst in the country, and that's when trouble happens. You lose money, lose time, lose energy, and in the... Yeah, we got some technical thing. Yeah, we got some technical thing in order to have better internet connection. And yeah, anyways, the main point is that many people want to play the sorcerer's apprentice here in Venezuela, and what they do is, they are very naive or with a lot of hubris, trying to deal with Venezuela, I'm gonna take the shots, and then that's when, mayhem happens, miscues happen, you have to overspend in order to correct previous mistakes, and I'm seeing this not only with clients, potential clients, and prospects, but even with colleagues that are committing horrible mistakes in Venezuela, because they want something. And by the way, this happens a lot with colleagues all over the world, that they think that they usually have like a cookie cutter strategy for how they advise their clients, and they have like brochures, pamphlets, very, step 1, step 2, step 3. In Venezuela, that doesn't work, because if I wrote, let's say I do that, and I wrote like a manual, a pamphlet, or whatever, it's going to be outdated very quickly, and then outdated again, and outdated again. That's why I have to evolve constantly the strategies. And if I apply old school strategies, my clients are going to lose, and they're going to lose money, and they're going to lose time. And I don't like that. I like to be effective for my clients, save them money, and being effective achieving their purpose in entry. Other thing that I'm seeing recently is people try to, that happens all the time. People that try to Google their way into Venezuela, just I'm gonna Google this, I Google that, and the open source information for particular strategies is not there, or is very outdated and is horrific, and they take this particular open source information that you find on Google at face value, and yeah, that's another mistake that they make. And the last one is, using AI, ChatGPT, Grok, whatever, for dealing with Venezuela. By the way, I use ChatGPT and Grok and whatever, and the information is terrible because Grok and ChatGPT and whatever, they take open source information and they give you that answer. And most of the time, and I do this regularly, by the way, the feedback from the AI is terrible. Only works when you have real information, so you can introduce the prompts on the AI platform, and then you get a great result. When you already have the knowledge, you already have the info, and then it's gonna give you a very, very decent result, very decent feedback. But even sometimes I have to, discuss with Grok and ChatGPT. No, please run the prompt because this is the only way. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Go ahead, and that's when you get great results using AI. Well, anyways, even regarding real estate, the strategies that there are proven strategies on real estate. I had a particular set of strategies that used to be very effective, but right now they are not. So the strategy is completely different. The market is completely different as the prices have gone up. I've said this many times. And right now, properties that were considered, less desirable and very risky, now they are, they are back on the table as potential good investments. And properties that used to be great, now they are not as great for many reasons involving, the context and the fundamentals of each market, each regional market in Venezuela. Okay. Before we start with the news, let's go and say if we have some questions. We have Dylan Hernandez. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hi, how are you? ¿Cómo estás, Dylan? Black Shadow Gaming. Yeah, to you, Black Shadow Gaming. Well, and no further questions. Let's go with the news. We have some breaking news that the U.S. Navy sees another Venezuelan oil vessel that is, not complying with the U.S. oil strategy for Venezuela. The Veronica 2 was seized just recently on the ocean close to Venezuelan waters. And starting the week, the U.S. military seized another vessel, this time on the Indian Ocean, apparently going to Russia. The previous one was going to Russia as well. We're gonna check the flights. Later on the live stream, we're gonna get to Chris Wright arriving to Venezuela. That is basically most of the news this week regarding Venezuela are surrounded that particular event. We have oil licenses approved this week. We are going to address that. First, there were a couple of two different batches of licenses were approved this week. The first one, it was the general license for the country overall by the U.S. Treasury Department that will allow U.S. imports to Venezuela's oil industry and expand exploration and production. This is important for oil and natural gas. This is important because previous licenses were only maintenance or keeping operations, but for this last general license is for actually producing, expand the production in Venezuela. That we're gonna get a little bit later on the estimates by the Energy Secretary Chris Wright. Okay, we have the same news from Bloomberg. The US government issued a general license to allow oilfield services companies to work in Venezuela as the Trump administration eases sanctions and pushes to rebuild the nation's crude infrastructure. Okay, what else we have here? On Thursday, Chris Wright, the US Energy Secretary, arrived in Venezuela. He was received by the ambassador, the head of mission in Venezuela, Laura Dogu. Everything went cool. There was a lot of polite conversations and interactions with the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez. We got this week also news from Mother Russia. This time from the Foreign Affairs Minister Sergei Lavrov says U.S. restrictions on Russia's role in Venezuela oil business are discrimination. Sorry, Sergei. Okay, then we got the meeting in Miraflores. Miraflores is the Venezuelan White House, yes, the presidential palace. Delcy received Chris Wright. It was very nice with music and children and whatever. And it was, actually a very beautiful event. Very, protocolar. Now, the funny thing, on that first day, Chris Wright, the Energy Secretary, pronounced a speech, very eloquent. But something interesting that he says is that we want to set the Venezuelan people and the economy free. Very next to Delcy Rodriguez. Something that is going on, I don't want to address that much the politics, but something that is been going on since, this issue, the special military operation, as you want to call it, is that the US has a particular plan set by Trump, by Marco Rubio, by Laura Dogu, and now by Chris Wright. Is that they have a 3-step plan that is stabilization of the country, then having economic recovery, and number 3, a political transition that involves elections. Now, that's the US game plan. The game plan from Delcy Rodriguez and the interim authorities is basically playing along most of the government, because there are some government authorities that they don't want to deal with the US, but the most important ones, they want to deal with the US. Anyway, the strategy of the interim authorities are to just play ball and try to let it slide that they want to be in power, despite the fact that they don't have the political capital in order to do so. They have, of course, the military capital to stay in charge, but let's say Lockheed Martin has another plans. But anyways, so we're on that tug of war, but regarding economics and business, mostly on the oil industry, yeah, they want to play ball, but regarding, let's say, individual freedoms in the country, that's when there is a gridlock between the US and the interim authorities. Also this week, China, for the first time since, the special military operation, they bought Venezuelan crude oil at a full price. China was accustomed to get the Venezuelan crude oil at a hefty discount, but this time they had to pay a full price. Also, Chris Wright says that the US sees dramatic increases in Venezuela's oil, gas output this year, according to Chris Wright, and the United States can drive a dramatic increase in the production of oil, gas, and electricity in Venezuela this year. This is according to, of course, to Chris Wright. He also mentions that enormous progress is being made with the South American of the country's oil industry. And the Wall Street Journal published an article about it. Regarding laws in the country, we discuss a lot the amnesty law that is very important in order to avoid the frictions that the political crisis caused by the regime, the Chavismo regime in the country. But there is some gridlock between different factions of the Chavismo. One is, of course, the main one by Delcy Rodriguez and the brother, that is the president of the Congress, and some more radical factions of the Chavismo that they do not want to pass the amnesty law, basically granting freedom and also to and basically leaving leeway to the political opposition. And there are thousands of political prisoners. A lot have been released recently, but still a long way to go. And still the situation is tense. It's more freer since the past few weeks, but there's still a lot of tensions in the country, in the people. The people are still upset with the interim authorities because, I mean, they are the same people that Maduro, but with some changes, of course, significant changes. What else? We have more licenses, of course. Then, after this general license, in order to expand oil and gas operations, another batch of licenses by the U.S. State Department in order to circumvent the sanctions that are also being eased right now. Several companies got their license in order to operate in Venezuela. Some of them are incumbents that will expand operations. Those are Chevron, Repsol from Spain, and Eni from Italy. And we have new players, well, since several years in the country, British Petroleum and Royal Dutch Shell. And that will be investing in significant projects in the country. Also has been said that ConocoPhillips, another US multinational regarding the energy industry, they want to take a stake in the country, but they want a payback for the losses after the expropriations during Hugo Chavez's tenure. And yeah, we are still on a standstill regarding that. Maybe they can cut a deal, get some retribution, but not at a face value, maybe like 20%, 50%, whatever. And then get progressively the full amount plus interest that they lost during those expropriations. And what else we have? Yeah, give me a second. I'm gonna drink some water. Also, Trump, of course, said this week that the relationship between Venezuela and the United States has been, to put it mildly, extraordinary. This is according to Trump himself, the best in the world, beautifully, extraordinary. Yeah. So, well, Trump is very optimistic about the future of Venezuela. And actually, on Friday, he mentioned, he was asked if he's going to visit Venezuela, and he said, yes, I'm going to make a visit to Venezuela. But he didn't give a particular time frame, but yeah. We haven't decided when, according to Trump himself. And then he went to Fort Bragg in North Carolina in order to congratulate the Delta Force, that's the headquarters over there in Fort Bragg, and in order to congratulate them for the Operation Absolute Resolve that we know that it was successful. And apparently one of the members of the team involved on the operation, he is going to get a congressional medal, the Purple Heart. I don't remember the biggest, the top condecoration for a U.S. military service. Also, going to another news is important. American Airlines in the approval, the permit, in order to have flights between Miami and Venezuela, not only to Caracas, the capital, but also to Maracaibo, one of the major cities in Venezuela. And also, according to the Wall Street Journal, President Trump is officially paving the way for global oil companies to jump back into Venezuela with a Treasury Department issuing license to Chevron and other operating there. Yeah, this is the Wall Street Journal take on the previous licenses that we spoke recently. We also have images of Chris Wright on the oil facilities in Venezuela, especially from Chevron, specifically a joint venture between Chevron and PDVSA, the state-owned company, and he was tasting the oil and whatever. He seemed very happy, actually, in Venezuela. Also, Chris Wright gave some interesting, let's say, outlook for the Venezuelan oil industry. He mentioned that regarding the further operations, the further, forget the word. No, the further production of Venezuela that right now is roughly 1 million barrels of crude oil per day. He said on an interview in Venezuela that the oil production could be expanded to 40%, plus 40% by the end of the year. He mentioned something around 2 million on a couple of years and 3 million by the end of the decade. I'm trying to find the specific quote. I have it here and I want to read it for you. Yeah, but Secretary Wright is very bullish on Venezuela's oil recovery. That many people are talking about decades or something. I know it's going to be quick, at least the first couple of million, extra couple of million. It's not that difficult because the infrastructure is over there. The oil fields are over there. And something that many people don't know about the Venezuelan oil industry, the Venezuelan oil overall, Venezuela, of course, has the largest oil reserves in the world. And most of that oil is heavy crude oil. That meant all of these geopolitical geniuses, no, they is not valuable or whatever, and yeah, not valuable and whatever. First, it's valuable, it's cheap to produce, so you have a profit, business 101. And Venezuela also has light crude oil. So, I mean, these people, I don't know what they're thinking. So, Venezuela, and also a lot of natural gas, that according to Chris Wright himself, natural gas is the quickest way to make, a dent and start producing more more resources in the country, getting more cash flow for the country. And natural gas is, in Venezuela, is a lot, has been unappreciated. And Venezuela has the 6 or 7 biggest reserve of natural gas in the world, actually. But Venezuela is not that, efficient on natural gas. But there are a lot of things that can be done, mostly offshore. And yeah, it's going to be nice, and like Secretary Red says, it's a quick win that we can have in the country, but of course not as big compared to the cash flow of the crude oil. Okay, we are going over here, Chris Wright, yeah, I have to check something, give me a second, some news that I want to check with you. And also we had from other news from today. Yeah, I'm gonna mention that in a minute. Yeah, give me a second. Yeah, I forget this. Okay, we have Secretary Wright. The expectations, according to Secretary Wright, is 40% of production plus 40% of production by the end of this year, 2026. 2x on production, that's 2 million, give or take, in the next 12 to 18 months, and 5x in 5 years. Now, the last one I think is very, ambitious. I think it's going to be like 3 million But yeah, well, it is Secretary Wright, and yeah, I think it's overselling. I think it's that 5x, like 5 million in 5 years, I think is, too ambitious. It's gonna be more on the 3.5 million per year mark for that particular time frame. And of course, we're gonna have 5x or GDP. Yeah, that I think is very very appropriate. Well, also the Financial Times did a couple of pieces about Venezuela. The first one, they did a couple of polls regarding the sentiment on the streets by the Venezuelan people. And the overwhelming majority of Venezuelans are very optimistic about Venezuela's future, regardless of their political bias. They did like a political poll regarding the next election, and according to the Financial Times, they are going to be Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader. She still has by far the biggest political capital in the country. She has 67%, according to the Financial Times, within Venezuela, without counting the people abroad. And Delcy Rodriguez, actually, not a bad result, 25%, because Maduro had something between 8 to 16%. 8 is the political capital of Maduro. The other 8 are Chavistas that don't like Maduro that much. And the floor for Maduro overall was 20%, being very, generous. Meanwhile, Delcy Rodriguez, according to the Financial Times, has an average of 25%. I think it's actually very good. But for the expectations, of course, it's very unlikely that on a free and fair election, the Chavismo can win that. I mean, but still, they're going to try to win it. And they have, survived worse situation. Let's see what happens. Also, the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, mentioned that a realistic time frame for a new election in the country will be 10 months, give or take, so by the end of this year. And Secretary Wright, he said that, that he agrees with Maria Corina Machado, that he says that is very optimistic. Well, anyways. And I want to also go with I want to address this. This is very important. This is the news for today. There is official that the interim government just slashed several social welfare programs that were introduced by Hugo Chavez. And and this is very important because these particular social welfare programs are politically motivated. There's a mission, whatever, mission Rivas, and a lot of agencies and whatever, a lot of public spending that it was a cornerstone for the Chavismo has been slashed by the government of Delcy Rodriguez. That's a surprise. Other thing regarding Chris Wright, that he mentions that on the past month and change, since the operation, the US has sold over $1 billion on Venezuelan crude oil. That first, that the oil revenue was going to an escrow account in Qatar, but right now, according to Secretary Wright, that money will be moved from Qatar back to the United States on a U.S. Treasury account. So the money apparently won't go by Qatar anymore. That Qatar, the reason why is because Qatar is a trusted partner of both the Chavismo and Delcy Rodriguez government and the U.S. government. Of course, they gave a plane to Donald Trump. So if any one of you want to give me a plane, I'm going to be very, very friendly with you. You don't have to do that. Well, anyways, those are the news from today. Also, Secretary Wright had a press conference right before he left Venezuela. He said interesting things. He said that according to the priorities for the U.S., that to the Venezuelan government is reforming the law, reforming the financial institutions in the country, the banking, and different systems in order to create more prosperity for the Venezuelan people. I agree. They want to improve quickly standards of living for Venezuelans. He mentioned the natural gas. And he will be back in Venezuela soon. And some other top US officials, high-rank officials, will be in the country. Donald Trump mentioned that himself might visit Venezuela. We can have the visit of Marco Rubio, maybe, or Scott Bessent. I don't think Bessent. Someone like that. But yeah, it's important on this new special relationship that Venezuela and the US have. That is, very weird. And yeah. Well, now I think is most of the news. We're gonna cover now let's update the flights. We got virtually very little flights thanks to the sanctions and also the political crisis after the election. Many governments broke diplomatic relationships with Venezuela, and then the Venezuelan government back then with Maduro just canceled he gave a mandate of canceling the flights to those countries. Okay, let's address. I have a great map. I found it. I don't remember the guy who made this map, but yeah, I have it right here. Okay, it's a nice map. I put it on both Twitter and also here on YouTube on the publications. Okay, we have new flights from Madrid. Some of these flights will start soon, and some between February and March. Okay, we're gonna have flights, 2 flights per day by Plus Ultra. In the near future, Iberia from Spain by the near future. Air Europa is gonna start actually, I believe, next week. 3 flights per week. I don't know if it's per week or per day. Yeah, but they fly a lot. Like, I think it's 3 flights per day. I'm sorry, per week. And what else? We have Estelar, a Venezuelan airline that I lost a flight recently on that. On Estelar, they're gonna fly once per day. And Laser Airlines, many internationals like Laser Airlines. I think it's a local airline here in Venezuela. They're gonna have 3 flights per week. Tenerife, Spain, also very popular destination for Venezuelans. They're gonna have a flight once per week by Plus Ultra. Cool. Then we have Curacao, one of the Dutch Caribbean islands. 1 flight per, I don't know if it's gonna be per week or per day. I think it's per day. I'm sorry, it's per week. 11 flights per week by Laser Airlines, the domestic airline here in Venezuela, and 5 flights per week by Avior Airlines, another Venezuelan airline. Bogota, a lot of flights to Bogota, of course. Bogota is the neighboring country to the capital of the neighboring country of Colombia. We got 7 flights from Wingo, 7 flights, once per day, so 7 flights per week by Wingo, also by Avianca, that of course, a flagship airline from Colombia. 4 flights per week by LATAM Airlines, 7 flights per week, once per day by Laser Airlines, Venezuelan airline, 6 flights per week by Avior Airlines, and 3 flights per week by Rutaca, another Venezuelan airline. And yeah, sorry, having some technical problems here. Give me a second. Meanwhile, I reboot this thing. Okay. We have also Cartagena, not only Bogota from Colombia. 3 flights per week by Laser Airlines, of course. Mérida is gonna be coming, or they're gonna resume. 2 per week by Avior Airlines, 3 per week by Wingo Airlines. And yeah, those are the two. I thought were more. Istanbul, of course, 3 times per week by Turkish Airlines. Yeah, that's a flagship flight in Venezuela. We have also Moscow, Russia, Bukonico, once per week by Conviasa, the state-owned airline. And apparently there's going to be one to St. Petersburg. So, very weird. This is, breaking news for me. Yeah, it's still Conviasa. I believe is going to make the changes within Russia or whatever. Okay, cool. Cancun 2 times per week by Conviasa, the state-owned airline. Mexico City, once per week by Conviasa. Barbados, once per week by Conviasa. And twice per week by Estelar, another major airline. 5 times per week to Havana, Cuba. That there are some issues with that regarding the oil fuel in Cuba right now. Once per week to Guangzhou in China. Twice per week to Lisbon, Portugal by TAP Portugal. 4 times per week to Sao Paulo, Brazil. This one is by Gol Airlines. I believe it's Gol Airlines. Yeah, let me check. Yeah, it's Gol Airlines. Twice per week to Manaus, Brazil. Major one, it's the biggest city on the western side of Brazil. And of course, several to Panama. Once per day, 7 times per week, operated by Copa Airlines. And 3 times per week by Estelar and Avior Airlines. Now, this is just for now. There are going to be another flights. The one Dominican Republic that's coming very soon used to be actually a very frequent flight to from Venezuela. But it's going to come by March, April, tops. They're going to resume those flights. The United States, American Airlines, I mentioned this previously. American Airlines are doing, the red tape, the due diligence in order to fly from Miami to Caracas and apparently also to Maracaibo, other major city in the country. And then by the end of the year, maybe we're going to have Buenos Aires, Santiago, Chile, other destinations in Europe. I remember years ago we got one to Italy, to Germany, Lufthansa, maybe. I don't know, but we're going to have more flights. Indeed, Peru, most likely we're going to have a flight to Lima, maybe other destination in Latin America. So that has been, like a summary of the week. Let's see the comments. If we have constant, we have official something, says hello. And thank you for your comment. And we have other, the same old comments. So, well, if we don't have further questions, thank you again for your attention. And we'll see each other on the next live stream and the next video. Have a nice weekend.